ओम सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ओम शांति शांति शांति। ओम सदाशिवसमारंभां शंकराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करम्। समस्तजनकल्याणे निरतं करुणामयं नमामि चिन्मयं देवं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरम्। सर्ववेदान्तसिद्धान्त गोचरं तमगोचरं गोविन्दं परमानन्दं सद्गुरुं प्रणतोऽस्म्यहम्। Hari Om. So we saw about the question that is answered is Ko Asau Anatma. What is this Anatma? And Paramakka Atma. Two questions were asked in those set of 7 questions. What is Anatma and what is the Atma? So what is Anatma is explained. Right from the Avyakta or the Maya onwards till this body, everything and Maya Karyam, Mahadadi Deha Pariyantam, everything is Anatma. Now, what is the Atma? And when it is said it is Anatma, the example given was of the mirage. That Anatma is, as long as we are in the dream appears very real. But when we want to wake up from that dream, we have to understand that it's only an illusion. In the same way, when we wake up, when we want to wake up to the true self, we consider all this which is around us, including this body, as a mirage, as an illusion. So though it is an appearance, there is no real water there. So it cannot really quench the thirst. In the same way, all this which is there around us is an appearance, but it will not be able to satisfy the true demand in us, which is of permanent happiness. Transactionally, whatever roles we have to play, we play. But our dependence on that need not be there for permanent happiness. For that, we turn within. And when we realize the self, this whole thing disappears actually. Person comes to get established in the truth, and then the person sees only the self. All this which we are seeing as separate from the self will also appear only as the self. So that is about the Anatma. Now, the next set of 10 verses are about what is the Atma. Now, we should remember one important aspect. These are not definitions of Atma. These are pointers. Gurudev always used to say pointer. So pointer is that in which direction we have to lift our mind. That which is infinite cannot be defined, but only indicated. Because anything for it to be defined must be a finite object, must have some name, form, qualities, attributes, relationships. But something which is infinite cannot be defined, can only be pointed. Okay, this, if you are think in this direction, you will arrive upon this. Because even the words infinite, all pervasive, all those are just indicators. The state is indicated by that word. So now let us see, what are the pointers given here? Athate sampravakshyami swarupam paramatmanaha yadvijnaya naro bandhan mukta kaivalyam ashnute. 124. Athate sampravakshyami. Now I will tell you. So vakshyami means to tell. Pravakshyami means to tell very well. Sampravakshyami means to tell precisely, properly, meaning one should listen carefully. Because if one listens to a guru who is established in the truth, and the upadesh of that guru one is hearing with full attention, with complete readiness, realization will happen then and there. So, athate sampravakshami, I am going to tell you, it also means comprehensively, from various, using various pointers, indicators. As much as he can, he is going to indicate what is this self. Swarupam, what is the Swarupa, what is the true essence or the nature, Paramatmana, of the Supreme Atma. See the word used, Paramatmana, because the question had Kosav Anatma Paramaka Atma, which is the Supreme Atma. Now, one thing to remember in this is Supreme Atma doesn't mean that there is one best Atma, then there is a little lesser Atma, then lesser than that. There is only one Atma, and that is Supreme actually, which is called Paramatma. And the same Paramatma is in the hearts of all. So it's not that Atma in me is different and Paramatma is different and this Atma becomes one with that Paramatma. Many people think like that. This Atma becomes one with that Paramatma. Atma of each individual is different. Atma of individuals cannot be different. Then it is a limited small thing. It's one infinite truth manifesting as all this. It's the same Atma. When identified with one individuality, we are calling it as Atma. But it is the cause of the whole universe. And by itself, it is infinite. It has no limitations of one body. So it is our own self. Swarupam Paramatmana. It is our own self, and what is the nature of that Paramatma? That is going to be explained. Yad Vijnaya Naro Bandhad Muktaha Kaivalyam Ashnute. And having known this, what will happen? Bandhat, from bondage, a person will be liberated. Now, who will be liberated? Naraha. So the word Naraha here is not just ordinary human being. Naraha here is an adhikari, a well-qualified student. Who is a well-qualified student? What we saw earlier. Vivek, Vairagya, Shatka Sampatti, Mumukshutvam, Bhakti. With these qualities, when a person goes to the teacher and asks the right questions, is ready to serve, surrender, and then listen, reflect, contemplate. That student, when that person comes to know this truth from the teacher, Yad Vijnaya Naro, Bandhan Mukta, from bondage he will be free. So what is this bondage? Remember in Vedanta we have bondage is defined technically into as the three aspects: avidya, kama, karma. Ignorance, desire, and selfish activities. These three are called bondage. The person has already purified the mind through selfless work, karma, has also reduced the desires through upasana, made the mind single-pointed in love. Now what is remaining is ignorance. That ignorance goes by clarity, by contemplation, knowledge arising through contemplation on the self. So Vijnaya is not just intellectually knowing. Vijnaya is to know very clearly that this self is my true nature. With a mind which is ready, pure, subtle, single-pointed. So every other knowledge, we gain something and we become better finite. So I don't know physics. Now I know physics. So I am a finite individual with the knowledge of physics. Earlier I did not know physics, but my finitude continued in both. Self-knowledge is not like that. Self-knowledge is not that I got this knowledge, now I am better individual than before. Self-knowledge is I got the knowledge that I am not this individual. So it dissolves. Tattva jnanat param nasti. There is no greater knowledge than this knowledge, because This makes me realize that this individuality is a myth. It helps me to dissolve that individuality. And what happens then? Kaivalyam ashnute. Experience that state of oneness, aloneness. That one truth alone pervades everything. So all the fear, insecurity, sorrow, misery, pain associated with this one individuality just disappears. Because in that which is infinite, there is no cause for sorrow. Bhuma vai sukham, alpe sukham na asti. In that limited, there is no happiness. Only in the unlimited infinite, there is happiness. The permanent happiness that we seek. And so here he says that such a person is freed from the three, avidya, kama and karma. In the Mundaka Upanishad, beautifully it is said, Bhidyate hridaya granthihi chidyante sarva samshayaha shiyante chasya karmani tasmin drishte paravare. When that supreme is realized, then a person goes beyond the hridaya granthi. Hridaya granthi means this: ignorance, desires, action. Ignorance of the self, selfish desires, selfish actions. When one has withdrawn from all these, ignorance is gone by knowledge, contemplation, kaivalyam ashnute. The person comes to experience only the state of oneness. At the moment, I think of myself in many, many ways. And my sense of identity also keeps on changing. So I feel limited. I feel bound to the world. I have people in the world with whom I'm attached. And my happiness depends on so many factors. It goes through fluctuation. The state of Kaivalya is that there is no difference between me, the world, and the Lord. Completely gone. In fact, that word Kaivalya is a technical word. So differences in Vedanta are divided into three aspects, three types. First is called as Vijatiya Bheda, the difference in various species. Cow is different, dog is different, human is different, trees, plants, birds, in each of them is different species. So that's called Vijatiya Bheda. Difference in different species. Each species has its own properties, characteristics. Second is called Sajatiya Bheda, difference in the same species. So the cow is one species. There is Desi cow, there is Gir cow, there is Jersey cow, like that, different species. One has a hump, one doesn't have a hump. So in the same species, the different types. First is Vijatiya Bheda, difference in different species. Second is Sajatiya Bheda, difference in the same species. Third is Swagata Bheda. In that one body, also the internal differences are there. Head is not the legs, legs are not the body, body is not the hands. Different differences in the same species, in the same body. All the three types of differences, Vijatiya, Sajatiya and Swagata, all these differences disappear. In that state of Kaivalya, there is only one self. It is not a dull state. It is a state of absolute bliss. The more we identify with differences, more there is sorrow, more there is insecurity. Many, many species to one species to parts in our own species, our own body. But when the sense of I pervades everything, just imagine in this one body, if the sense of I pervades and one doesn't get threatened by anything in the body, because one feels this is me. But at the moment, one has chosen to identify oneself only with one. Imagine if one identifies not as a jiva, but as a atma, I am that which is all this. It's a great joy. This whole universe is nothing but expression of my true nature. Every single thing that is happening here is happening by me, in me. And so there is so much of joy that is there. So Kaivalya is the state of oneness, where all the sense of divisions, differences go away. In the state of Samadhi also they go away. Then the whole world one has withdrawn from. And in the world outside also. When one lives outside, these realized masters, why do people feel so much of love in their presence? Because they don't have a sense of finitude. So one feels closest to that supreme self when one goes and meets these masters. One's own true nature, one is able to see that here is somebody who has no boundaries, who loves unconditionally, who is not insecure, who serves tirelessly, who is very, very peaceful, secure, no dependence on anything. So that is the state of Kaivalya. Whether it is inside or outside, the sense of difference which is there in the mind, because of which I feel I am different, world is different, God is different, that difference is gone. So that is this. Bandhat Kaivalyam Ashnute. So the nature of the self is what is, he is going to explain that now. Now it starts. What was said till now was that he is going to tell about the self, and this will be the result of knowing the self. Now starts the pointers. Now each of these pointers we have to contemplate. 125. Asti kaschit swayam nityam aham pratyaya lambanaha avasthatraya sakshi san panchakosha vilakshanaha. Asti kaschit, there exists something. Swayam, on its own it exists. Nityam, which is eternal. Aham pratyaya lambana, it is the very base or the substratum of the feeling of I that we have. Each one feels I exist, I am so and so, son of so and so, these are my qualities. So that I, the base of that is this self. How to know it? Avasthatraya Sakshi, it is the witness of all the three states of consciousness. Waking, dream, deep sleep. Three states of consciousness. They come and they go, but this Sakshi remains the same. Avasthatraya Sakshi San, Panchakosha Vilakshana, and is different from the five koshas. What are these five koshas? Annamaya kosha, the body. Pranamaya kosha, the vital air. Manomaya kosha, the mind, emotions, feelings. Vijnanamaya kosha is the intellect, thoughts, rationality, logic. Anandamaya kosha is the bliss sheath which we experience in deep sleep. These are five koshas. Kosha means a covering. So this self is different from these five. Generally we think we are these five. He says, no, 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 this is not you. This is a covering on you. Sakshi, the self is that which is different from this. Panchakosha Vilakshana, different. So now each of them are the pointers. What is the meaning of a pointer? The pointer turns our attention within and takes the attention to that which is beyond the body, mind and the intellect. World, definitely it is beyond the world. Turn from outside to inside. From inside also, when we say turn within, go to the core. Drop these layers. and go to the essence. What is that core? Every word here, the pointer is indicating that core to me. So this is not for some intellectual activity, but this is for contemplation, to turn the attention to that state. Because that is my nature even now. When we say God is in the hearts of all beings and God is realized in the hearts, in the language of devotion, yes, He is in the hearts of all. In the language of knowledge, He is the very self. God is the self in us. In the Gita yesterday we saw in the evening, Aham Atma Gudakesha. Bhagavan said, I am the Atma. Sarva Bhuta Shayastita. I am in all the beings. So now the idea is that the pointers are to be used for two things. To rise above our false sense of individuality, to dismantle that individuality by not encouraging that. And two, to strengthen our abidance in the self, that I am that self, which is what we do in contemplation. Detached from the not self, attached to the self. These are the pointers for that. So these are the verses which one can use in contemplation. So let us see. Asti kaschit. There exists something. Now why is it said something? The idea is it is not tangible, it is not finite. In me there exists something which is so subtle, which cannot be explained as any other object or using any other description. Each one has to find for oneself, what is that presence in me? Asti kaschit. Why do we say it exists? Because of that existence only the body is alive. All the things exist. That existence never becomes non-existent. Name and the form keeps changing. Even science tells us the same thing. Matter is indestructible. It can get converted, but it cannot get destroyed. It can change name, form. Energy is also indestructible. It can get converted. Potential energy, kinetic energy, this energy, that energy, but it cannot get destroyed. Now that as far as matter is concerned, same thing applies within. That there exists something which is, right now the student doesn't know, so the teacher is indicating that presence, but is telling him that it is not that it's non-existent. It exists, asti kaschit. That self, what is the nature of that which exists? It is self-existent. Swayam, asti kaschit swayam. No one has created it. Because if somebody else creates it, that entity is greater than this one. Two, whatever comes into being will also get destroyed. Jatasya hi dhruva mrityuh. Whatever is born has to die. And it cannot be eternal. It was not there in the past. It came into being. It will not be in the future. So it changes. It is not like that. It is self-existent. Now this word swayam means to say that there is the supreme cause, which is a causeless cause, which is beyond cause and effect. What is that in me which exists at all times, which has not been created? Just think about it. Such a beautiful aspect, which till now I don't know. I don't know meaning it's just a notion that I don't know. The fact is, it is my true nature. See, in our house, many times it happens that, money is kept somewhere. Sometimes mothers, they keep money and they save it. They save it and they keep it somewhere. Different places they may keep. Sometimes they only forget. And when some crisis is there, some urgent need is there, and suddenly they find some money from some place, one is so thrilled, "Hurry, I found this money. Oh, thank God, it's such a great savior." Finite things, when we get like that, which we have forgotten, we feel so thrilled. Here, what is Vedanta saying? That in us there is a presence which is infinite, which is self-existent. We have not paid attention to that. Asti kaschit swayam. It is that which no one has created, which means no one can destroy it also. That indestructible, eternal presence in us, swayam, is self-existent. So the ultimate cause of the universe also is a self-existent cause. Many times this question we ask, who created the world? We say God created the world. Who created God? Then no answer. If we say God's father created, then who created that God's father? God's grandfather. Who created that? It will go into infinite loop. Children ask this question. And when children ask the question, many times the elders feel so proud, my child is asking this question. But the child is wondering, but you are not giving me the answer. Because the parent or the elder doesn't know what is the answer, how to tell the child. But the fact is, this is the answer, that there is a self-existent cause. Asti kaschit swayam. How can it exist on its own? Why not? That which is infinite. Our problem is, with a finite intellect, we are trying to think only in terms of time. That something comes into being only when somebody creates it. It stays for some time, then it goes. That's the nature of the finite buddhi. It can think only that much. That there is an existence which is uncreated is unimaginable for the buddhi. But that's what we have to transcend. The limitation of the buddhi is what we are transcending through contemplation. Asti kaschit, that there exists something which is self-existent, swayam, because of whom everything else exists, which is not created by anybody else. Because if you say the cause which is existence is created by someone else, that person has to exist before. That entity has to exist before, from where it came. So existence is the root, is the basis, fundamental, which exists on its own. Infinite cause of the universe, which is the self in us. Asti kaschit swayam. Nityam, it is eternal. Swayam and nityam. Swayam and nityam indicate the sat. Sat aspect. Sat means existence. So what is this sat existence? That which is, that because of which everything else exists, is called as the existence. It is not any qualities of that object. Like the book. So the book has the qualities that it has a certain size, it has a certain shape, the paper has certain quality, you can print on that paper. These are qualities of the book. Now, if I transform this book into something else, let us say what do we call? Writing pad, examination pad. Now the qualities have changed. But the book was, the writing pad is. The writing pad changes, I make it into something else. Now the book was, the writing pad was, and the new thing is. The isness that everything exists, that existence did not change. That is called Nityam. How does it apply to us? It applies from the body standpoint. Every moment the body goes on changing. The properties of the body change, the qualities of the body change. The form of the body also changes when we drop this body, or even while we are alive. It was small, then it grows, and again it shrinks. The form keeps changing. Qualities keep changing. Appearance keeps changing. But it exists. Even when the body is dead, it is existent. so that existence never goes away. Is that existence an inert existence? Says no. Aham pratyaya lambanaha. It is consciousness. What is that because of which this body is able to function? Eyes can see, ears can hear, tongue can taste, skin can touch, nose can smell. The capability in these senses is because of this consciousness reflecting in this body. Now, this we should understand very clearly. Body by itself is inert. Thoughts by themselves are also inert because they are made up of 5 elements. When the consciousness reflects in the subtle body, remember subtle body means mind, intellect, memory, ego. 4 plus 10 senses of knowledge plus 5 pranas. 19 elements constitute this subtle body. This 19 elements have the special capability to reflect consciousness. And this further identifies with the gross body, and then this body becomes alive. So the sense of I that we have, I am this body, I am Mr. So-and-so, the son of so-and-so, I am good, I am happy, I am angry, I am sad. These are aham pratyaya, these are called aham pratyaya, I, in the form of attachment to some body, mind, intellect, some thoughts, some feelings. We keep feeling the sense of individuality. Aham pratyaya is the individuality. Now, why this subtle body has this capability? Just like the sun can reflect in a medium which is available for reflection. Otherwise, the reflection of the sun is everywhere. We see it very clearly in a mirror or in clear water. We don't see the reflection of the sun in tree because the medium is not capable of reflecting the sun. In the same way, the subtle body is made up of 5 subtle elements, and that subtle 5 elements are capable in a way whereby they are able to reflect the consciousness. And that reflected consciousness is called this, which identifies with the body, the jiva, Mr. So and so. But who is that jiva actually? The thoughts, the senses, the thoughts, the feelings, body is not the jiva. It is that pure consciousness reflecting in the subtle body, which then gives the feeling of I, Mr. So and so, the individuality. So the individuality is nothing but that infinite pure consciousness reflecting in a subtle body. That's what is called aham pratyaya lambana. The example, what is the example for that? The sun reflecting in the pot of water. So when the sun is reflecting in the pot of water, the reflection of the sun is aham pratyaya. And reflection of sun is based on what? Does the pot have the reflection of its own? No. It is a reflection of the sun only. So every reflection in every pot is nothing but the sun up there. Aham pratyaya lambana. So instead of seeing the reflection and thinking that that reflection belongs to the pot or to the water, what is Vedanta telling us? That we are forgetting that the reflection is only a reflection. The source is the sun. The same way the self is that in us, which is the very substratum of the jiva, the sense of I that I have. By itself, the body cannot have the sense of I. By itself, the mind and the intellect and the pranas and the senses cannot have the sense of I. Because if they have it by themselves, it will never die. because it is Nitya. Hence, it is this understanding one has that every single thought that arises in my mind is an opportunity to realize consciousness. Because how is the thought rising? Unless consciousness doesn't enliven, a thought is not possible to rise. That's why Gurudev used to define thought. Beautiful definition he gave. Thought is equal to object plus consciousness. Simple, but very, very profound. Every thought is nothing but an object illumined by consciousness. Then the thought rises in the mind. If we go still deeper, there's a theory of perception in Vedanta. That how do we perceive? Suppose I am seeing this computer. How do I get the knowledge of this computer, that this is a computer? So consciousness illumines the mind, which goes out through the senses, pervades the object, and knowledge arises in the mind. If I know that object from before, somebody has introduced it to me, then I know, oh, this is a computer. So the eyes by themselves will not know. The mind by itself has no capability to know. But when the consciousness enlivens the mind becomes capable. That mind further goes out through the senses, envelopes the object, and the knowledge arises in the mind. This is that. So that is how the theory of perception is. So every perception that we have externally, what we see, hear, taste, smell, touch, internally, whatever we think, we feel, is all illumined by consciousness. Which is what is said, don't search for God out somewhere. God is in here. In here means in every single thought. The Upanishad says beautifully, Kena Upanishad, Pratibodha Viditam Matam. In every perception, Pratibodha, you will know the consciousness. Bodham Bodham Prati. In every single perception, you will know that, oh, this is the consciousness. So we have two choices, either to identify with the I, the Jiva, I am seeing this, I am doing this, I am going there, I am becoming this, where I identify with the Jiva as Mr. So-and-so. Or identify that I am that consciousness, the Sakshi, of this Jiva also. Because there is an observer in me. From quantum physics standpoint, that's what we say. There is an observer who is observing this entity acting. So there's an actor, there's an observer. That observer is me, consciousness. And the actor is the Jiva, Mr. So-and-so. Where did this Jiva come from? He is the same observer, consciousness only reflecting in this one equipment. So every single thought. So instead of fighting the thought in meditation, what do I do? Be an observer. It comes, it goes. Then one realizes aham pratyaya lambana. Every single thought that is arising to this I. Who is this I? Is that pure consciousness? The real I is the pure consciousness. Only identifying with the equipment, it is feeling this small individuality. So aham pratyaya lambana. What is the nature of that? Avasthatraya sakshi. It is the witness of the three states. Each state is exclusive of the other. Waking state entity is different. Dream state entity is different. Deep sleep, none of the experience of waking and dream exist in it. Every state eliminates the other two, is exclusive. Of course, some in-between states exist. But the idea is that that is only transition happening. What is the idea? The Sakshi is the same in every state. Aham Pratyaya keeps changing. Mr. So-and-so, the notion that I have in the waking changes when I go into dream. I take up so many other identities. In the waking state, I can be a rich person. In the dream state, I can be a beggar. In fact, Janak Maharaj had that question. He went to sleep and he dreamt that he was a beggar. when he got up, he had a very strange question. Generally, that question doesn't even arise to us because we think that this is real, the waking state is real, dream is an illusion. But he had a very different question. He went to his Guru Ashtavakra Muni and he asked, am I the king who dreamt that he was a beggar? Or am I the beggar who is now dreaming that I am the king? And the Guru gave a beautiful answer. This is called out of the box thinking. The management is talking about out of the box thinking today. Our great masters have gone out of the box long back. Ego is the box. So the answer that the teacher gave was, you are neither the king nor the beggar. You are that entity which is aware of both. Because how did you know if you were the king in the waking and you are the beggar in the dream? What was common in both for you to know that you are that entity who was there in both? Because the identity is changed. One is king, one is beggar. Unless there is something common in both, it is not possible to know. You are that consciousness which is the Sakshi of both. You are neither the king nor the beggar. So Avasthatraya Sakshi, one who is a witness of all that is happening in the waking by this waking ego. In Vedanta we call the waking ego as Vishwa. The generic name of the waking ego is Vishwa. The generic name of the dream ego is Tejas. And the generic name of the deep sleep ego is Prajna. By generic name meaning that entity is called Vishwa. Otherwise you and I have names. And each jiva has different names. But to how to identify that waking ego, to refer to that waking ego, it means Vishwa. So that who is the Vishwa? I, the waking ego in this state right now. I am that Vishwa. Then when I go into the dream and the entity who is dreaming, all the characters of the dream it creates and goes through it very really, that dream entity is called Tejas. And the entity which doesn't know anything, which records the absence of everything, is the deep sleep entity called Prajna. Now what is Vedanta telling us? All the three identities are different from each other. But how is it that when I wake up from the deep sleep, I know that I did not know anything? When I wake up from the dream, I remember my dream. If not fully, at least vaguely. Means there has to be an entity which is common in all the three, because the law of memory is very simple. Experiencer alone can be the rememberer. One who has not experienced the thing cannot recollect and remember it. You may say, no, but somebody can tell you. But that is not your experience. So that entity which is common in all the three is the Sakshi, is the Avasthatraya Sakshi, is the consciousness which doesn't do anything, but which is present in all. And is that consciousness which enlivens the mind. So the mind goes through and it experiences and recollects and records and stores everything in the chitta, the memory. So it is that chitta which is able to tell us what exists in the dream, what I experienced in the deep sleep, there was nothing there. But what is that which is common in all the three, which is recording all the three, which is enlivening this ability in the mind to go through all this? That is the consciousness. Chitta goes through changes. Buddhi is dormant in the deep sleep, in the dream, it becomes active in the waking. So the mind, intellect, memory, ego, they go on changing. But the changeless entity which is there in all the three is the witness, is the consciousness. So now, what is the self? When the teacher is asked, the teacher is saying that self in you is that presence, the observer, who is observing all the entities in the waking dream deep sleep. The ultimate observer, actually, that's the word. The ultimate observer who is observing even the ego doing all this. That ultimate observer, avastha traya sakshi san, panchakosha vilakshana. It is different from the five koshas. Just like in winter, when it is very, very cold. December we had gone to Siddhabari. 0 degree, -2 degree. Biting cold. Layers and layers of clothes one is having. Thermals, and then the clothes, and then the sweater, and then the hoodie, and so many layers of clothes. Are these layers me? Or I am the entity within all these layers? That entity is different from the layers. The layers cannot be mistaken to be me. They are only covering me. In the same way, the body, the pranas, the mind, the intellect, the Anandamaya Kosha, all these are the layers. Now, when we say layers, one should not think, see the example as a limitation. One should not think Atma is some small little thing covered by so much. It's not like a body that the example gives body and then 5 layers of clothes above it. So the body is limited. That's a finite example. Just to say the concept of covering. What is the concept of covering? Atma is the subtlest, which is all pervasive. Already it was said Nityam, Swayam, all that. So it is not a small thing. But when it said it is covering, what is the meaning of covering? Covering means identification. If the body is hungry, I feel I am hungry. If the mind is happy, I feel I am happy. If the intellect is successful, I feel I am successful. If I experience bliss in deep sleep, I feel I am blissful. What is Vedanta saying? Those are conditions of the body, mind, intellect. Why are you identifying with that? That identification is covering, because that identification is covering my true self. I don't know who I am because I'm identifying with this and I'm thinking I am this. So the covering is in the form of false identification. When I step back from this false identification, that is called uncovering. So what is that which is giving the 5 layers the power to do? It is the self. Like the electricity is different from the bulb. Electricity is illumining the bulb, empowering that bulb, then the bulb gives light. If one thinks that bulb is giving light on its own, then the bulb as though is covering that electricity. Because one doesn't know what is that electricity. One is thinking bulb is doing on its own. In the same way, one is thinking the BMI functions on its own and I am that BMI. No. That consciousness, which is different from these 5, is empowering these 5. Without the presence of this, none of these 5 will work. So it is vilakshana. It is completely different. Meaning the properties of this cannot affect that. The 5 koshas, they go through changes. They come, they go. They keep on modifying. But the Atma is different from all these. So now what does this shloka tell us? In me there is a presence which is self-existent, which is eternal. These cover the Sat aspect, which is the very basis of the feeling of I that I have, the Jiva Bhav that I have. The very basis of that feeling is this. So that is the Chit aspect, the consciousness aspect. That there is an existence, there is a consciousness. And what is the nature of that consciousness is indicated. It is the witness of the 3 states, avasthatraya sakshi, and different from the 5 koshas. So in me there is a witness. Now witness means what? uninvolved, unaffected observer. That's a witness. Which is uninvolved, but in its presence everything acts, and unaffected, nothing touches it. Avasthatraya Sakshi and Panchakosha Vilakshana. Now this I have to sit and contemplate in my mind. When I have quietened the mind in my seat of meditation, what do I have to say? Asti Kaschit Swayam Nityam. That in me there is one thing which is Swayam, which is Nitya. What is that? Aham Pratyaya Lambana. It is the sense of I. The true I, Aham, 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 constantly is there in my heart. If I don't identify with the body, mind, intellect, that pure I remains. So I withdraw my attention from the three states, from the five koshas, and try to experience what is that in me, which is constantly present, which is self-existent, and which is the very basis of this sense of Jiva Bhav that I have. That is the true me. So this is first pointer, first verse, which is telling about the Atma, the pointers to the Atma. More we take up tomorrow. Any doubts, any questions, you are welcome to ask.
हरिम स्वामी जी।
हाँ जी
जी मैंने रामचरितमानस में और गीता में पढ़ा था कि मल विक्षेप और आवरण जो है वो ढक देते हैं। धूमेन अग्नि व्रियते हवि। तो ये जो आपने बताया अविद्या, काम और कर्म, इसके साथ क्या रिलेशन है?
In the Gita it is said in the context of Kama. We should not forget the context there. The context is when the question is asked by Bhagwan to by Arjun to Bhagwan, that what is that which makes a person act against one's wishes, even when one knows that this is harmful. So Bhagwan answered there, Kama esha krodha esha rajoguna samudbhava. It is Kama and Krodha which is born out of rajoguna, attachment. It is that type of a desire which veils the truth and which does not allow the person to experience to act in a righteous way. Then he goes on to describe the play of desire, that how the desire plays. And he tells that this desire veils our knowledge. Even though I know this is wrong, even though I know what I should not do, why is that I'm not able to stop? Because the desire veils. So there the veiling is of three types. Sattvic desire veiling is like the smoke and the fire. The smoke covers the very fire in a havan. So the Pandit has to keep blowing it off. That the Sattvic desire veils the knowledge, which goes with little effort. The Rajasic desire, the example given is the dust and the mirror. The mirror, there is a lot of dust which gets stuck on that mirror or over a period of time. Just by blowing it will not go. You have to rub it with a piece of cloth. More effort required. So Rajasic desire veils the knowledge in that way. And then the Tamasic desire is like the fetus is covered by the womb. So the embryo that is covered by the womb, it will take 9 months to come out. The Tamasic veiling sometimes is very, very powerful. Life has to give some kicks and take some time to come out of that Tamasic desire, veiling. So all the three are veiling the knowledge. And because of that, I'm not able to live the way I want to live. I know something is right, I'm not able to do. I know something is wrong, I'm not able to prevent. It is because of this. So that example is for this, that aspect.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay, so we continue tomorrow. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.